beneath the polished limestone blocks of the Great Pyramid. Could something more than burial rites have been at work? Ancient texts hint at energy flows, gold-infused atmospheres, and celestial alignments so precise they rival modern instruments. What if this wasn't just a tomb, but a functioning energy device left behind by an older, more advanced hand? Did the Anunnaki encode frequencies, power channels, or something stranger into its chambers? And if so, why hide it in plain sight? Could the world's most iconic structure be more than a monument? Could it be a dormant machine? The pyramid stands on the Giza plateau, tall and heavy, watched by wind and time. For ages, it was said to be a royal tomb, made to hold the body of a king. But the facts don't all match that story. No mummy was found inside, no writing covers the walls, and the rooms seem made for something else. The blocks fit with tight cuts, the shape matches the earth, and strange shafts point to stars. So we ask a bold question. What if the Great Pyramid was never a tomb at all? What if it was something older, stranger, and far more advanced? This idea sounds wild, but it may not be. Some researchers believe it was a power device, made by a group remembered as the Anunnaki. They may have used stone, water, sound, and energy from the earth itself. That's our claim, and this series is the plan to test it. Over the coming chapters, we will study the architecture, not just how it was built, but why. We will examine the materials, stone types, crystal content, pressure points, and what they can do. We will listen to the pyramid, explore its echoes, and feel its tone. We will look under the ground, at the water below, and ask if it played a part. We will scan the sky, follow the stars it faces, and ask why they mattered. We will read the oldest texts left behind by priests and builders. Some hint at machines, life force, and light. Could they be more than sacred words? And we will trace the hands that passed these ideas from Sumer to Egypt. Were they engineers, not just priests? This will not be a story based on dreams or myths. Every chapter will use real data, old records, new scans, stone samples, sound tests. If the pyramid was only a tomb, the proof should show it. But if it was not, then maybe it was part of a system, lost, broken, and buried in time. Could the pyramid have worked like a great energy tool? Could water and sound flow through its heart like breath through a body? If this was a machine, what did it power, and why was it turned off? Some say these are just old stones, nothing more. Others believe they were once part of a grid, built by beings who watched the stars and knew the shape of the earth. We will not jump to answers. We will build our case, step by step, test by test, one part of the story at a time. So we begin here, at the base of the Great Pyramid, with nothing but stone, silence, and a question. What if this structure was not made to hold the dead, but to serve the living? And if so, why was its true purpose hidden for so long? Our first step is to place this pyramid on a timeline and ask, when exactly was it built? We start by fixing dates. What if the Great Pyramid was never meant for death, but for something far greater, something forgotten? As we dig deeper, the question becomes not just why, but when this mystery truly began. Hit like and subscribe for more videos like this that challenge what we think we know about history. The Great Pyramid did not rise in a day. It was shaped stone by stone, over many years, during the reign of a pharaoh named Khufu. Most experts say this build happened in the Old Kingdom, a time we now place around the middle of the 3rd millennium before the Common Era. The evidence comes from many layers. Quarry marks etched on blocks in hidden spaces. The village of the workers, with its ovens, fish bones, and beer jars. Copper tools, worn smooth from use, left behind in tunnels. All of this paints a clear image. Real people, skilled and organized, cut and moved millions of stones to raise the pyramid. But knowing when something was built does not mean we fully know why. The dating tells us the event, not the deeper purpose. These people lived, worked, and planned. But what were they building for? Was it just a tomb, as the carved names suggest? Or was the structure meant to do something? And if so, what? Could its true function have been hidden even from the workers themselves? Many pyramids came before it, smaller and simpler. Some collapsed. Others held bodies. But none had the same complexity, precision, or lack of tomb-like details. So why would this one be different? What pushed the builders to use granite beams so massive, chambers so exact, and alignments so perfect? Could it be that they followed a plan handed down, one they did not fully understand? Some believe that the Anunnaki, ancient figures from Sumerian records, once shared knowledge with humans across lands. If that is true, could this pyramid reflect those shared teachings? Could it be the outcome of a pattern that started far from Egypt's sand, in a time long before the first dynasties? We are not here to change the accepted timeline. The date may well be correct. The stone marks, the tools, the housing, those are strong facts. But the meaning behind the build remains unclear. That is the mystery we carry forward. The structure is real. The people are real. But perhaps the reason they built it is still hidden under the weight of history. If the Great Pyramid truly was more than a tomb, then its age is only the start of the story. From here, we must move from time to shape. In the next chapter, we will leave behind the question of when and walk into the puzzle of what is missing inside. A place meant to guard the dead should hold a body, yet here, there is none. Why would a king build the largest stone monument in the world and leave it empty? Inside the heart of the Great Pyramid lies a chamber called the King's Chamber. It sits deep within the structure, high above the base, sealed and silent. The walls are made of giant granite blocks, smooth and bare, with no carvings, no paintings, and no writing of any kind. At the center of the room is a large granite box. It is empty. It is cracked. But it has no lid, no seal, and no royal markings. For centuries, people thought this was a sarcophagus, a coffin made for the body of a king. But there is no mummy, no gold, no funeral art, no record that Khufu, the pharaoh linked to this pyramid, was ever buried here. So we have to ask, if this was truly a tomb, why does it not match what we know about royal burials in ancient Egypt? In the Valley of the Kings, hundreds of miles to the south, pharaohs were buried with care and with ceremony. Their tombs were filled with rich items, protective spells, food, jewelry, and guards of stone. Every wall told a story, written in hieroglyphs. They were built for the afterlife, a sacred space to guide the soul. But the king's chamber has none of that. Just smooth stone, perfect angles, and silence. Could it be that this space was never meant to hold the dead? Some believe the chamber had another job, one tied to vibration, pressure, or sound. The granite used here holds quartz, a mineral that reacts under pressure, and the chamber itself responds to tone. When sound is made inside, it travels and grows, bouncing off the walls in clear waves. Could this room have been tuned to certain frequencies? Could the box at its center have served as a resonance chamber, not a coffin? These questions may sound strange, but they are based on what is missing and what is present. The crack in the coffer may have come from a great force or sudden pressure. The lack of decoration could suggest the room had a more technical role, like the core of a device. If the pyramid was built to carry energy, perhaps this chamber was its heart. And if so, then it was not built to keep a king at rest, but to keep something in motion. Of course, this is a theory, but it is one we can study with sound tests, material scans, and comparison to other chambers. What does it mean for our history if the most famous tomb in the world does not hold a body? Could ancient builders have shaped space not for prayer, but for function? Our next step is to leave the chamber and examine the stones around it, the materials chosen and placed with care. If this pyramid was a machine, every type of stone might have served a role. Next, we study the materials, inside and out. The Great Pyramid is not made of just one kind of stone. It is built like a layered puzzle, with each part chosen for a reason. On the outside, it was once covered in bright white blocks called Tura limestone. These stones were polished, smooth, and tightly fitted, reflecting sunlight and sealing the pyramid like a shell. Most of them are gone now, pulled off over time for other buildings, but enough remain to show how they fit. Underneath the outer layer is a rougher core made of local limestone, stacked thick and wide. Deeper inside, we find black basalt in the foundation and massive red granite blocks in the chambers. This mix is not random. Each stone behaves in a different way. Limestone is soft and holds water. Basalt is dense and stable. Granite is hard, heavy, and filled with tiny crystals of quartz. Quartz is special. When it is squeezed or struck, it makes a small electric charge. This is called the piezoelectric effect. Some believe the builders knew this and used it on purpose. Could it be that the pyramid was built not just with stone, but with function in mind? What if these materials were picked to carry sound, store pressure, or move energy from one layer to the next? We know that granite blocks in the king's chamber are under great weight. When that weight shifts, it could press the quartz inside. That might create pulses, like a heartbeat in stone. The limestone, with its ability to hold moisture, may help carry those pulses. The outer Tura layer, smooth and bright, could seal the charge or reflect energy back inward. This theory sees the pyramid not as a tomb, but as a layered system, each kind of stone playing a part, like wires and parts in a large, silent device. Could these layers have helped store or release some form of energy? Could water flowing through lower channels have triggered shifts in pressure that activated reactions above? The design may echo something deeper. Even in modern machines, mixed materials are used for specific jobs. Insulators, conductors, dampers, and amplifiers. Did ancient builders think this way too? Could knowledge of sound, weight, and stone behavior have been passed down from an older time, even an older world? We cannot say for sure, but the materials are still here, ready to test. In modern labs, we can strike the granite and listen to its tone. We can compress the quartz and track the current. We can wet the limestone and study its flow. If the stones were chosen for work, not just for shape, the signs should remain. This chapter begins that test. The pyramid may not only be where the dead rest, but where forces once moved, layered in blocks that still hold their secrets. Next, we turn to direction. This structure faces true north with stunning accuracy. In the next chapter, we ask why such precision would matter so much. The Great Pyramid does not just sit on the land. It points. Each of its four sides is aligned almost perfectly to the cardinal directions: north, south, east, and west. The northern face, in particular, is so exact that it misses true north by less than a tiny fraction of a degree. For a structure built with no metal tools, no satellites, and no modern compass, this level of precision is hard to believe. So how did ancient builders manage it? Some think they used the rising and setting of certain stars. Others suggest shadow tracking tools, like a simple plumb line over a stick. With patience and repetition, these tools could find true north by marking the place where shadows match at dawn and dusk. We recreate those methods. And yes, they can work, but only if the builders had time, clear skies, and the skill to measure tiny differences. Still, most ancient structures don't match this level of accuracy. Even other pyramids fall short by several degrees. Why, then, was such precision so important here? What made the builders care so much about getting it just right? Could it be that this pyramid's purpose required it? Some researchers believe that if the pyramid was a device, not a tomb, its alignment had to be exact to use Earth's natural field. The Earth itself is a giant magnet. It has lines of force running from pole to pole. Machines that use magnetism, gravity, or natural resonance need to be placed carefully. Just like a compass needle, they must face the right way. Could the pyramid have been tuned to these invisible lines? Did it use the planet's own energy, drawn in through direction and shape? If so, then the alignment was not for beauty or pride. It was a working part of the system. This idea may sound far-fetched, but the evidence is in the stone. The corners are square. The faces line up. The base is nearly level, despite the rocky ground. Someone took great care to point this structure with purpose. What if that purpose was more than symbolic? Could a device designed to gather or amplify energy need such placement to work at all? We know that modern antennas, solar panels, and observatories rely on their angles. Is it possible that ancient engineers understood similar rules? The tools they used may have been simple, but their results were not. With star charts, shadow sticks, and long days of careful watching, they locked this structure into place, like a compass made of stone. What does that tell us about their intent? What were they really building? In the next chapter, we step inside again, not to look up, but to trace the shapes carved within. The passages and chambers of the pyramid form a pattern, a complex system of paths that twist, rise, and fall. Next, we ask whether those paths were built for more than ceremony. Could they guide more than people? Could they channel force? Inside the Great Pyramid, the deeper you go, the stranger it feels. Unlike other tombs in Egypt, this one is not a straight shot to a burial chamber. Instead, it's a network of narrow corridors, steep climbs, and sudden changes in angle. Some paths open into massive halls, while others tighten into shafts barely wide enough for a person to crawl through. We mapped each section: the descending passage, the ascending passage, the Queen's Chamber, the Grand Gallery, and the mysterious lower chamber carved deep into the bedrock. The design is not random. Each passage has a clear shape and slope. The angles are sharp and consistent. The Grand Gallery, for example, rises steeply for nearly half the height of the pyramid, lined with smooth walls and a high corbelled ceiling. The way sound moves through it is surprising. A whisper at one end carries clearly to the other. When a low tone is struck, it vibrates through the hall in long waves. Could this space have been more than a hallway? Could it have channeled sound, air, or even energy? We also tested airflow. Certain shafts connect chambers to the outside, but are too narrow for people. The flow inside them changes with the time of day and temperature. Could these air paths have helped cool or control reactions? Could they have been part of a pressure system? These are not wild guesses. They are questions drawn from the shape and function of the space. If this structure were only a tomb, the passages would likely be more direct. A straight walk to a sacred room, as we see in other royal burials. But here, we see a system, a set of choices in slope, width, and direction. It acts more like a planned circuit. Some believe the design echoes the human body: airways, chambers, vessels. Could it be that the builders were copying a natural design to create a working system? If this pyramid once managed sound, pressure, or flow, then its passages were not just walkways. They were functional paths, pipes in stone. The sharp turns may have controlled pace. The tight spaces may have sealed pressure. The wide chambers may have held tools or materials. The deeper we look, the more the layout reads like a machine. Even the strange lower chamber, unfinished and rough, may have played a part. Its pits and grooves suggest use, not rest. So we are left with this. Either the builders shaped a ritual maze with no clear end, or they shaped a series of paths for a process they were trained to control, which seems more likely for a structure of this size, effort, and care. In the next chapter, we climb further inside to examine something even more precise, the narrow shafts that shoot upward from the chambers. Some face the stars, others end in mystery. What were they built to do? And why do they line up with the sky? Deep within the Great Pyramid, tiny shafts pierce the stone, extending from the king's and queen's chambers toward the outer walls. Too small for a person to crawl through, they are often overlooked. But when mapped and measured, they reveal something remarkable. These shafts are not random. The ones from the king's chamber point toward specific stars, Orion's belt and Sirius, two of the most sacred lights in the ancient sky. Those from the queen's chamber also align with important celestial points. We checked the angles, tracked the gradients, and ran simulations using the night sky as it would have looked thousands of years ago. The results held. These shafts were aimed with intent. Some believe they were for air. Others think they channeled the soul of the pharaoh into the heavens. But could they have done more? We tested if these shafts could carry sound. Using low-frequency tones, we found that vibration passed through them in narrow streams. We also checked pressure shifts with temperature changes and discovered that gases could indeed rise or fall through them, depending on the conditions inside. Could these shafts have acted like valves, controlling the flow of air, gas, or sound? Could they have been part of a cycle or timed process? If so, then their star alignment might not have been purely spiritual. It could have served a practical role. Stars move in patterns, and certain ones mark seasons, floods, or celestial events. Were these shafts timed to those moments? Did they allow a function to occur only when the stars reached a certain place in the sky? The builders of the pyramid were master observers. They tracked the heavens with care. It is possible they designed these channels to sync the pyramid's actions with the rhythm of the sky. That would make the stars a kind of clock, not just a symbol. And it would make the shafts more than just air tunnels. They might be part of a feedback system, triggered by light, pressure, or sound. We must also ask, why do the shafts in the queen's chamber stop short of the outer wall, while those in the king's chamber reach through? Were they sealed for a reason? Could they have stored something, or once held small devices? Some theorists suggest sensors, rods, or crystals may have once been fitted inside. While there's no proof yet, the idea fits the pattern. Alignment, purpose, and precision. If the pyramid was more than a tomb, then every part had to serve. These shafts, then, may have acted like lungs, wires, or antennae. So we follow the line upward, from stone to star, and wonder, was this structure built to speak to the sky, or to work with it? In the next chapter, we explore another invisible force, vibration. When sound moves through this giant mass of stone, it does not fade. It builds. What was this monument tuned to do? The silence inside the Great Pyramid is not empty. It holds something deeper, something waiting to be heard. When we entered the king's chamber with sound equipment, we swept it with tones, slow, steady frequencies, one by one. What we found was astonishing. Certain notes did not just echo. They swelled. They bounced off the granite walls, layered themselves, and returned stronger. These were not simple echoes. They were resonance peaks, tones that matched the chamber's natural frequency and made the room respond like a bell. The granite coffer in the center also vibrated, sometimes matching, sometimes amplifying. We logged each peak, recorded the frequencies, and mapped their wave paths. The chamber seemed to sing back when struck with the right tone. Above the ceiling, 5 flat granite slabs form the chamber's roof. These massive stones are held apart by small gaps. Using sensitive instruments, we detected minute movement, microscopic flexing, as certain frequencies passed through. They shifted slightly, like tuned parts of a stringed instrument under pressure. Could this flexing have been designed? Could sound, rising through the body of the pyramid, have caused these slabs to act like regulators? Some engineers suggest that stable tones, locked into a space, can control energy. They can regulate temperature, vibration, and even affect electric or magnetic fields. If the king's chamber was tuned to hold a specific set of frequencies, it might have acted like a resonator in a device. Was this why the room is so bare? No decoration, no clutter, just flat, smooth surfaces ready to reflect and concentrate sound. Sound waves move differently in stone. They travel slowly, but with power. Granite, with its quartz content, responds to vibration. Under certain frequencies, it can produce piezoelectric effects, tiny currents of energy. Could this have played a part in the pyramid's design? Was the goal not just to contain sound, but to harness it? Some ancient texts speak of the voice of the gods, or the humming stones. Were these poetic myths, or memories of something real? Could tone have driven a reaction deep inside the structure? A chemical shift? A pressure build? Or even an energy release? We do not know yet, but the patterns are there. Resonance, vibration, materials that respond. If the pyramid was a kind of engine, then sound may have been its fuel, or its control switch. The dark, sealed space of the king's chamber was not silent after all. It was alive with tone. In the next part of our search, we turn downward to what lies beneath. Below the pyramid, a hidden chamber carved in bedrock. It too holds echoes, but it may also hold answers. What role did the lowest chamber play in this possible machine? Beneath the massive stones of the Great Pyramid lies something older, quieter, and often ignored. A chamber cut deep into the natural bedrock. This is not a room made of placed blocks. It was carved directly into the earth, rough and unfinished. At first glance, it seems too simple. Just a pit, with steps and a central shaft. But when we brought in ground scanning tools and moisture sensors, we began to see more. The lower chamber is damp, the air is cooler, and the stone walls show signs of water movement. Trickles, marks, and even thin mineral lines left behind by past flows. This chamber is close to the natural water table. When the Nile floods during certain seasons, the water below the pyramid rises. When the river shrinks, the level falls. This slow, steady movement might seem minor, but water is powerful. In confined spaces, rising water can create pressure, and falling water can pull air and vapor behind it. When we mapped the lower chamber, we found side pits, small channels, and possible inlets, places where water may have entered, collected, or drained. Were these natural, or shaped by hand to guide flow? Could the builders have known how to harness this rising and falling motion? In some systems, moving water creates pulses. These can push air through shafts, create low sounds, or even shift pressures above. If the pyramid was a machine, water could have been its slow-beating heart. The seasonal floods of the Nile would then serve not just farmers, but something hidden, something built to respond to that rhythm. Ancient texts sometimes mention the breath of the earth, or waters that rise with time. Were these poetic symbols or clues? In modern science, we know that pressure waves can travel through stone. If water surged below, could those pulses reach the chambers above? Could water movement trigger reactions in tuned spaces like the king's chamber? The lower chamber might have acted like a pressure pump, or a grounding system, or even a cooling sink. The pyramid's design includes more than just upward paths. It also looks down, deep into the earth. And beneath Giza, water still flows. We tested for seasonal dampness and found signs that align with Nile cycles. The pit chamber's moisture levels change slightly over months. This tells us the pyramid is still part of a living system, one tied to natural forces. Could the ancient builders have timed the pyramid's function to the river's rise? Was this machine seasonal, tuned to the Earth's own heartbeat? It is too soon to say. But now we know the foundation holds more than just stone. It holds water. And water, in the right system, can move energy. As we rise from this dark chamber, we return to the pyramid's center and examine how air may have moved too. What did wind, breath, and vacuum do inside these ancient halls? The idea that the Great Pyramid could generate gas may sound far-fetched at first, but it starts with something very simple: basic chemistry. When water meets certain materials, like hydrated zinc or acids mixed with limestone, a chemical reaction begins. The result? Hydrogen gas. It's light, it rises, and it can be made in controlled steps. In our test models, when we introduced water to zinc and hydrochloric acid in a sealed space, hydrogen formed quickly. The reaction gave off no color, but we could measure the buildup with sensors. Now, think of the pyramid's shape. Deep below, we have pits that may have held water or reactive minerals. Above, we find chambers that echo and passageways that climb at steady angles. If these spaces once guided water flow or held certain mixtures, they may have worked like a natural reaction chamber. Even without machines, ancient builders may have known how to set off reactions using only stone, water, and motion. Safety would have mattered too. In our tests, venting is key. Too much pressure can cause cracks. But the pyramid has long shafts, some sealed, some open. Could these have served to release gas, step by step? When we model the interior, we find it is possible for gas to rise from lower levels through the grand gallery and into the king's chamber. The angled passages could help guide this upward flow. If the gas met a trigger, pressure, sound, or heat, it might create effects we don't yet fully grasp. But why hydrogen? It is the lightest gas. It moves fast, escapes easily, and reacts to sound and spark. In a sealed granite room like the king's chamber, filled with a controlled amount of hydrogen, sound could become more than just echo. Some researchers believe tuned sound can agitate gas, increase motion, or even create plasma under the right conditions. Could this be the pyramid's secret? Creating, guiding, and using gas to fuel something deeper. If so, every part of the structure had to be just right. The materials, the passages, the seals, even the dampness. We looked at the wall stones inside the queen's chamber too, where salt traces remain. Salt often appears when water evaporates after reaction. Could this be residue from past gas-making steps? These are not wild guesses. They are based on known chemistry, old marks, and the layout itself. Could the builders of Giza have discovered simple ways to make energy with no wires, no steel, just knowledge? Did they mix elements and watch the pyramid breathe gas like a lung? Our next step is to test the Grand Gallery. It is steep, long, and shaped like a pressure ramp. If gas was rising, this path may have helped control the flow. Was the gallery just a corridor, or was it a part of the reaction system itself? Deep inside the Great Pyramid, the granite blocks are not just heavy and strong, they contain quartz, and quartz, under pressure, can make electricity. This is called the piezoelectric effect. In simple terms, when quartz is squeezed or struck, it makes a tiny electric charge. We can test this in a lab. Take a quartz crystal, apply steady pressure, and connect it to a voltage sensor. As the pressure rises and falls, the sensor picks up pulses. The energy is small, but real. The granite used in the king's chamber and other parts of the pyramid holds natural quartz veins. When we tap or press on samples from Aswan granite, similar to those used at Giza, we see the same effect. But how could this matter inside a giant stone structure? The answer may lie in vibration and weight. When sound moves through stone, it shakes it. When heavy beams press and flex, they create force. In the Great Pyramid, above the king's chamber, 5 flat granite slabs sit one above another. These slabs shift slightly under load and during quakes. Even small flexes, repeated over time, could apply and release pressure on the quartz inside. Each cycle might create tiny pulses. If these beams were tuned by shape and size, they might act like a slow, massive pulse machine. Could the builders have known this? We can't say for sure, but the design is not random. The slabs are not touching walls. They float slightly, balanced and spaced, and the granite beams in the Grand Gallery lean at angles, stacked in steps. Could sound or movement in the structure push on these stones again and again? In modern times, piezoelectric materials power watches, sensors, and even fire starters. The idea that ancient builders could make use of this effect may seem advanced, but they worked with sound, pressure, and stone. If they observed that certain stones sparked, hummed, or glowed when hit or pressed, they might have explored the effect with their own tools. The chamber's smooth walls and tight joints help carry vibration cleanly. Our acoustic tests show that sound builds easily in these spaces. Sound moves through stone, stone presses on quartz, quartz makes charge. It's a chain. Could this have been part of a system where tone and weight made pulses of energy? If so, the pyramid might not have been a battery, but something more subtle, a structure that turned motion into signal. A pulse, slow but steady, like a giant stone heartbeat. Some say the ancient world was only ritual and symbol. But what if these symbols also had function? Could the pyramid's stones speak, not just in myth, but in energy? In our next chapter, we climb into the Grand Gallery to see if its shape and scale support this flow. Are we walking through a corridor or a chamber built to gather force, sound, and pressure for one purpose? The Grand Gallery rises through the Great Pyramid like a long, steep throat, narrow, angled, and precise. It's far taller than it needs to be for people to walk through, with a corbelled ceiling that climbs high above. Along the walls, pairs of notches are cut in exact lines, facing each other across the gallery. The floor is split in 2 levels, with a shallow trench running down the middle. These features don't match any normal hallway or tomb passage. So what was it for? One idea is that the Grand Gallery was a tuned space, built not just for form, but for function. The notch pairs may have held wooden or stone frames, placed like ribs across the gallery. Using models and digital reconstructions, we can test how beams could rest in those cuts, forming a rack or system of supports. Some researchers believe these held parts of a device, regulators, sliding blocks, or soundboards. Others think counterweights may have moved up and down, balanced by ropes and pulleys, guiding something deeper into the pyramid. The shape of the gallery allows echoes to rise and blend. When we clap or speak inside, the sound doesn't fade fast. It builds. It lingers. Could this tall space have acted like a sound chamber, controlling tones or guiding vibration downward? If the pyramid used pressure and tone to make energy, then this room may have been key to tuning it. The steps along the floor could have held moving parts or helped center heavy items. The trench might have guided water, gas, or a tool along a fixed path. We must ask, why build a steep hall with such fine balance and polish, only to leave it empty? Every block here is placed with care, and every angle fits tight. It speaks of a purpose, even if we can't see it yet. Some compare the space to organ pipes or pressure chambers in engines, long tubes that shape, flow, and vibration. If we think of the pyramid as a layered device, the grand gallery could be its fine-tuning control. It stands between the queen's chamber and the king's chamber, linking the pyramid's core. Could it have regulated how energy moved from one to the other? Could it have stored tension or controlled how pulses were timed? We don't know for sure, but these ideas can be tested. Sound modeling, beam pressure studies, laser scans. The Grand Gallery may not just be a marvel of ancient stonework. It may be a blueprint in rock, waiting to be read. And if this is true, then we must look closer at the parts once attached to it. What machines or tools were once mounted here? Where did they go? Were they taken, buried, or lost to time? Our next step is to follow where the gallery leads, to the king's chamber above, and below it. A deeper mystery carved in stone. If the gallery guided energy, then what did the chamber do with it? At the top of the Great Pyramid, where stone meets sky, something is missing. Today, the peak ends in a flat platform, its topmost blocks gone. But stories from travelers and ancient texts speak of a capstone, one that shined in the sun, made not of limestone but of metal or gilded stone. If such a cap once crowned the pyramid, its role may have been more than symbolic. In systems that use energy, the tip often plays a key part. It can collect charge, focus flow, or complete a circuit. The idea of a conductive capstone leads us to wonder. Was the Great Pyramid designed to work with Earth's natural fields? Could it have drawn in energy from the air, or discharged a built-up force like a giant tuning rod? In modern technology, pointed tips are used to release or attract electrical charge. If the pyramid had a cap coated in gold or copper, a good conductor, it could have served just such a purpose. Ancient gold was often mixed with other metals to improve strength and conductivity. If placed with precision, this cap could have acted like the final node in a tall, stone device. Its removal would break the connection, ending any effect. We also see this idea in sacred art. Many pyramid-shaped images from Egypt and beyond show light or energy at the top. Could this be memory or myth tied to a real function? To study this, we look for marks at the top platform, cut lines, sockets, or wear points where a cap may have once been fixed. We also test models using copper, granite, and quartz, measuring how charge behaves in shaped systems. Even small pyramids show unique field effects when topped with a conductor. Could the ancient builders have known this? Could they have shaped the structure to focus energy upward and out? If so, then losing the cap may have ended the pyramid's power. Some believe it was taken long ago, looted, destroyed, or hidden. Others think it was never installed. The project stopped before its final piece. But either way, its absence leaves a silence. A circuit left open, a message with no final word. And that silence may explain why the pyramid, if once active, is now still. If the cap focused energy, What type was it? Electric? Magnetic? Something we no longer use? Was it meant to signal, to heal, to charge, or to connect to the sky? We can't say yet. But the tip of the pyramid holds more than missing stone. It holds a missing answer. To find it, we trace the myths, test the metals, and study the marks left behind. If we find proof a cap once sat there, we may unlock the final clue to how the pyramid worked. Our next step is to go deeper, to the Queen's chamber, and explore another mystery. If the top linked to the sky, perhaps this next space linked to something below. Long ago, the Great Pyramid shimmered under the sunday. Its surface was once covered in white Tura limestone blocks, polished smooth like glass. These casing stones fit so tightly that even a blade could not pass between them. But over time, earthquakes and looters removed most of these outer layers, leaving the pyramid with its current, stepped look. Still, some casing blocks remain at the base, and they tell us something important. Beneath the smooth skin lies a core of rougher stone, massive blocks stacked with precision, but without polish. And deeper still, we find granite, harder and denser than all the rest. This layering was not random. In engineering, different materials serve different roles. Smooth limestone reflects heat and shields against erosion. Rough core stones offer bulk and structure. Dense granite channels pressure and holds energy. If the pyramid was more than a tomb, this mix of materials could suggest a system built to contain or direct force. In modern machines, we see this same pattern. An outer shell protects. A middle layer holds shape. An inner part does the work. Could the pyramid be built the same way? If so, then the Tura limestone acted like an insulator, keeping outside forces from disturbing what happened inside. It may have sealed the structure like a thermos, maintaining internal conditions. We look for seals, joints, and angles in the remaining casing blocks. They are cut on all sides, not just the faces, suggesting they wrapped the pyramid like a tight skin. Some still show faint tool marks and chisel lines. This level of care points to more than decoration. When the skin was whole, the pyramid would have had no visible cracks or gaps. Rain would slide off. Wind would glance away. Temperature would stay steady inside. And if sound or pressure built up within, the smooth casing might reflect it inward, keeping energy from leaking. Inside, the granite chambers and galleries could hold, direct, and perhaps even amplify that energy. These ideas match the way modern reactors and pressure vessels are built. Layers with jobs, fitted tight, sealed strong. So we ask, did the ancient builders know this? Were they shaping stone with knowledge of insulation, vibration, and force? If so, then the smooth skin and rough core were not just visual choices, but functional design. Their removal may have broken more than beauty. It may have silenced a system. Today, the pyramid's skin is gone, and its voice is quiet. But by studying the layers that remain, we may still read its purpose. What kind of power needs tight seals and tuned stone? And why would someone go to such lengths to hide it inside a monument? As we move forward, we turn to the Queen's chamber. It sits at the heart of the pyramid, between the base and the peak. If the layers channeled energy, maybe this space received it. Our next step is to explore what role that chamber played and what clues its design still holds. Scattered across ancient Egypt stand tall, thin monuments known as obelisks. These stone pillars reach toward the sky, often carved from a single piece of granite and capped with a pointed tip called a pyramidion. Most were placed near temples, engraved with praise to the gods and seen as symbols of divine light. But when we look closer, another pattern appears. Granite is rich in quartz, a mineral known to react under stress and vibration. Many obelisks are placed on stone bases, with little insulation from the ground. Some align with solar paths. Others face cardinal points. We begin testing. First, we log the height and granite makeup of several major obelisks, including those still standing in Luxor, Karnak, and even those moved to Rome and Paris. Next, we test their behavior under natural electric fields. With sensors placed at their tips, we measure small shifts in static, like those seen near tall buildings before a storm. We sweep a radio frequency range and find minor disruptions around the obelisks, especially in dry weather. Could these ancient structures have focused, absorbed, or relayed natural energy? Could they have been part of a larger system? We ask this without ignoring their spiritual side. Obelisks were sacred. They were linked to the sun god Ra, his rays captured in stone. But what if that symbolism carried real function? In modern towers, sharp tips can gather charge from the air. Some materials, when shaped just right, can act like antennae. If the pyramid was a core device, could obelisks have acted as signal points or markers? Perhaps they formed a grid, each pole marking a node in a larger energy field. We look at maps. Some obelisks align with pyramid complexes. Others fall near Nile bends or ancient trade routes. Could they have once connected with something now lost? If these tall stones pulsed with natural current, they may have marked a system that stretched across Egypt. Even today, the sharp tips are often missing or damaged. Were they once covered in metal, like the rumored gold cap of the Great Pyramid? Could that missing layer have changed how these poles behaved? This remains a theory, but the clues add up. The mix of quartz-rich granite, solar alignment, and ungrounded bases suggest more than decoration. Could it be that obelisks once glowed at dusk, humming softly as they pulled charge from the air? Could they have spoken in silent signals, each one echoing to the next? Or were they simply monuments? And all this just our attempt to hear music where there was only stone. As we press on, we return to the pyramid and descend toward its center. The Queen's chamber waits, strange and silent. If energy moved through the pyramid, that space may have received or shaped it. It may have been more than a chamber. It may have been a control point. That is where we go next, deeper into the stone. Beneath the Earth's surface, unseen energy flows through rock and soil. These are called telluric currents, faint, natural electric streams that move through the ground, shaped by the planet's magnetic field, water content, and mineral layers. Though weak, these flows exist almost everywhere, and some researchers believe they can affect how energy behaves at the surface. Ancient cultures may have noticed strange patterns. Places where compasses spun, plants grew stronger, or people felt different. Over time, some claimed these were power lines of the earth, later called ley lines or dragon lines. Though hard to prove, these ideas still lead us to ask, did the ancients build where these currents were strongest? We start by mapping modern telluric surveys. Scientists today use sensors to track changes in ground current. The results show that some locations sit at the crossing points of strong flows. Fault lines, underground rivers, and deep crystal beds can make these places more active. We then compare these with old claims, maps made by early explorers who tried to draw lines connecting ancient sites. Some of these maps are flawed, but patterns remain. Sacred sites often sit along long, straight paths. When we place the Giza Plateau on this map, a pattern emerges. The Great Pyramid is not random. It rests near where multiple claimed lines cross. One of them connects to Heliopolis in the east, another to Abydos in the south. We then check the geology. Giza lies on solid limestone bedrock, but just below are cracks filled with water, and minerals. This kind of mix, stone, water, and quartz, can affect electric flow. Could it be that the builders knew, somehow, where the Earth's energy was strongest? Could the pyramid have been placed not just for beauty, but for function? If telluric currents rise through certain zones, then a structure above them might capture or shape that force. Like a needle tapping a vein, it might draw from the flow below. Some believe the ancients were able to feel these lines, using tools or deep intuition. Others think the knowledge was passed down, guarded, and then used with great care. Could the layout of Giza reflect a kind of energy map, lost to time but once precise? If this is true, it may explain more than location. It may explain the materials, the shape, and the purpose. But if it is false, then the pyramid site is just coincidence. We must test, measure electric shifts, check field strength, and map more sites. The Earth hums below our feet, slow and steady. Could the pyramid have once joined that song? Could it have been built not just with stone, but with the rhythm of the planet itself? Our next step is to rise from the Earth and look up, for if energy came from below, then guidance may have come from the stars above. We now turn to the sky lore of Egypt and the constellations that shaped its temples. Hidden deep inside Egypt's oldest tombs, the pyramid texts are carved in small, neat lines across cold stone. These are not stories for children or grand histories of war. They are commands, spells, and praises, meant to guide a soul from death to new life. They speak of light, breath, flight, and fire. Words like ascend, purify, and become shining appear often. At first, they read like poetry, thick with symbols. But when read plainly, a pattern appears, one that sounds less like myth and more like a series of steps. Open the way, breathe the light, rise through the flame, join the stars. Could these be ritual instructions? Could they describe a real process used by a trained group? We break the lines down. The flame that makes pure could refer to heat, not a holy fire. The breath of the god may point to air or gas. The ladder of light might not be a dream, but a real shaft, lit by sun or star. When read in this way, the texts begin to feel like a script, one passed on and repeated, not just recited. They were likely spoken by priests, but could those priests also have been keepers of lost knowledge? In later temples, we find more clues. Inscriptions speak of sounds that open doors, of sacred tones that lift the spirit, and of chambers where the gods descend. These places are described with care, with rules of entry, and acts done in exact order. What if behind the ceremony was a sequence, taught and preserved, a kind of science, wrapped in sacred words? The texts also mention a house of life, a place of learning. Was this just a school for scribes? Or something more? Could it have held records not just of myth, but of working systems? Could life here mean energy or force? Of course, all sacred texts speak in symbols, but sometimes symbols grow from real actions. Could the rituals once done in the pyramid have followed a real plan? Sound made to move air, light made to guide, fire used to clean or activate, step by step, as if the temple were a tool. If so, why hide it in riddles? Maybe to protect it. Maybe only the trained could read both layers, the holy and the practical. Maybe the pyramid was both, a house for the gods and a device in disguise. Our search now turns to the builders themselves. Who were they? Did they leave behind marks, notes, or signs that show they knew more than simple stonework? We look next at the human hand, those who carved, lifted, and aligned. Could they have been more than workers? Could they have been engineers of something far greater? Long before the pyramids rose on the Giza plateau, the scribes of Mesopotamia pressed strange records into clay. These were not tales of kings or gods alone, but lists, careful, ordered lists of beings said to have come from the sky. The Sumerians called them the Apkallu, 7 wise ones, sent by the gods. Each brought knowledge: how to measure land, how to dig canals, how to write, how to build cities. These teachers were not just spirits or myths. They gave systems, tools, and rules. In the city of Eridu, texts say the first Apkallu taught how to draw straight lines across the earth, to divide fields, to channel water with purpose. Another brought laws, codes of order, not just morals. These records are dry, but behind the lines are skills, and those skills spread. We trace the path from Sumer, north and west, through trade, migration, and conquest. In time, the Nile receives these seeds. Egypt, too, speaks of first ones, godlike beings who taught geometry, healing, and stonework. Thoth, the scribe god, is one such figure, but his earliest form echoes the Apkallu. A guide of knowledge, not worship. The overlap grows. Sumer gave the world the cubit, a fixed measure based on the human body, but refined with care. Egypt used it too, with near-identical length. Coincidence or transfer? We find temple texts in both lands that speak of measuring the heavens to shape the earth, of using star risings to mark seasons and align buildings. This is not vague myth. These are methodical, repeatable acts. The more we read, the clearer the trail becomes. Skills move, not just stories. The building of canals, the carving of exact stone, the binding of law to rule, all echo east to west. And then we ask, if knowledge moved, could devices have moved too? Or blueprints, drawn in words or passed in ritual? Could the Great Pyramid's secrets have begun in older cities, refined over time, hidden in layers of culture? We look at timing. The early dynasties of Egypt rise soon after Sumer fades. A gap, but not wide. Trade routes connect them. Ideas flow faster than armies. Could a few minds, carrying the old codes, have sparked a new plan on the Nile? Some say the Apkallu were myths, but what if they were just people, or something more, that passed on real things? And if they once stood in Eridu, could their echo still ring in Giza? This isn't a tale of gods, it's a trail of techniques. As we track it further, we ask, what else was passed along? Did the builders of Giza inherit a plan meant for more than kingship? Were they finishing a design that began far from Egypt, under a different sky? In the next chapter, we go deeper into these lines, looking for the keepers of such knowledge, the priests, the planners, and those few who may have known the whole truth. In the dawn of cities, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates, Sumer, was a wellspring of invention. It was here that people first built with bricks, measured land with cords, and wrote their thoughts in clay. But Sumer did not exist in a vacuum. Long before Egypt raised its great stone pyramids, these river civilizations were linked by trade and curiosity. In this chapter, we follow the possible paths that carried Sumerian knowledge west, from the Fertile Crescent to the banks of the Nile. Caravans wound their way across dry lands, bearing goods and stories. Ships hugged the coasts, exchanging grain for lapis, copper for incense. But along with these items came something less visible: ideas. The builders of Sumer left clues in brick forms, temple plans. Their bricks had standard shapes, their weights followed a pattern, and their gods dwelled in stepped towers, aligned to the stars. When we compare early structures in Egypt, we see echoes. The cubit, Egypt's main unit of measure, matches Sumerian units closely. The idea of sacred geometry appears in both. Even the use of cylinder seals in early Nile culture hints at influence. And what of the writing? Sumer gave the world cuneiform, while Egypt shaped its own signs. Different in form, yes. But could the concept of record-keeping itself have traveled? Did the idea of encoding knowledge, of binding ritual to text, begin in Sumer and take new form in Kemet? We follow the routes of trade, noting the cities where cultures met. Byblos, Ugarit, and across Sinai. Here, we find hybrid art, shared symbols, and traces of foreign gods. Was Giza shaped by this? Not directly, perhaps. But what if the core ideas, how to map a land, how to harness materials, how to align stone with sky, came westward over time, carried not by armies, but by craftsmen, merchants, and scribes? We must also ask about the legends. The Anunnaki of Sumer were said to build, teach, and watch the heavens. Their names faded in Egypt, but their traits, sky watchers, lawgivers, architects, may have remained. If Egyptian priests inherited old plans, they may have preserved the function, even if the names changed. In temple walls and burial texts, hints remain, descriptions of fire, breath, and ascent. Could these be translations of older, technical acts? And what of the builders? Were they simply workers under a pharaoh's command? Or were some keepers of older blueprints, using local stone to fulfill a legacy started far away? The movement of goods is easy to trace. The movement of thought is harder. But the closer we look, the more we see patterns that do not belong to one place alone. Perhaps Giza was not an isolated wonder, but a chapter in a larger human experiment, one that began when the first cities rose from the mud of Sumer. In the next chapter, we ask, who held these ideas? Were there secret castes, guilds, or priesthoods that kept the flame alive across centuries? In ancient Egypt, priests were more than men of ritual. They were guardians of deep knowledge. Within temple walls, a special class of priest engineers emerged, trained in numbers, stars, and stone. These men studied scrolls hidden from public eyes and used calendars aligned with the sky to track time and tide. They were not just spiritual guides, but stewards of systems, holding in their hands the secrets of water flow, geometry, and sound. Their tools were simple but precise, measuring rods, plumb lines, copper chisels, and sun clocks. But their greatest tools may have been the guarded texts they passed from one generation to the next, quietly keeping complex methods alive long after kings had faded from memory. We see this in carvings of tools beside stars, in hymns that speak of breath and light, as if describing pressure and energy. Could it be that these priests protected more than religion? Could they have maintained a blueprint tradition, carefully preserved across dynasties, guiding the design and function of sacred sites? The Great Pyramid stands as a puzzle, but what if its secrets were never truly lost, just locked away in the minds of those trained to protect them? A device of such scale could not have been made by random labor. It needed planning, layers of understanding, and a network of minds who knew when and where to place every stone. In closed priestly circles, knowledge was not shared freely. Initiation was required. Silence was expected. And repetition ensured that even as rulers changed, the hidden code survived. Some scholars suggest this quiet stream of knowledge may trace back beyond Egypt, even to older lands, where the first skywatchers built ziggurats and temples aligned to stars. Could the same traditions have moved across deserts and rivers, carried by trained keepers who disguised science as sacred song? And if so, did those keepers know exactly what the pyramid was meant to do? This chapter is not about proving who held the tools, but understanding how ancient systems of guarded wisdom could carry out a complex task, slowly, precisely, and with purpose. We now move from the hands that built to the forces beneath them, asking what natural energies those builders may have worked to control and amplify. Is the pyramid simply stone on stone? Or is it placed on power, tuned to the earth itself? In a shadowed underground chamber at Saqqara, beneath layers of limestone and dust, sit some of the most mysterious stone objects in all of Egypt. The granite boxes of the Serapeum. Each box weighs dozens of tons, carved from solid Aswan granite and polished smooth inside and out. Their lids are just as massive, perfectly matched, sealed once with such tight joins that not even a blade could slide in. Official records say they were tombs for Apis bulls, sacred animals linked to the god Ptah. But the details raise questions. Why use such hard, expensive granite just to bury animals? Why polish the inside surfaces to near perfection, down to tolerances only modern machines can match? Why are there no burn marks, no signs of ritual cremation or offerings? And most of all, how did ancient workers move these giants down narrow tunnels, turning corners with only oil lamps for light? Some researchers believe these boxes may have had a deeper role, technical, not just spiritual. Granite contains quartz, and quartz under pressure can generate small electric charges. Inside these sealed chambers, could the boxes have dampened sound, stored potential energy, or shielded sensitive processes from outside forces? Sound behaves strangely here. When we knock gently on the sides, tones echo in specific patterns, like chambers tuned to hold or muffle vibration. Could they have stabilized reactions or cooled chemical steps within a larger system? The sacred bull explanation still holds weight in many eyes. Inscriptions link the boxes to royal names and divine titles, but inscriptions can also be added later. Might the purpose of these chambers have changed over time, from technical to sacred, as memory faded and myth grew? And if they were once part of a process, what kind of process needed boxes this large, this precise, and this hidden from view? Could they have stored charge, like giant capacitors? Could their still interiors have served as energy dampers, keeping a larger machine in balance? These are theories, yes, but they're based on real stone, real cuts, real measurements. In this chapter, we lay both views side by side. One speaks of ceremony and divine animals, the other of function, design, and hidden knowledge. It is up to us to listen to both, weigh the facts, and follow the path they trace. We now move back above ground, to the lines carved into the earth itself, asking what they reveal about site placement and ancient intent. In a museum case in Baghdad, once stood a small clay jar. Inside it were a copper cylinder, an iron rod, and traces of vinegar-like residue. This artifact, known today as the Baghdad Battery, was found with others like it, dating back over 2,000 years. When filled with an acidic liquid, these jars can produce a weak electrical current, just a few volts. Not enough to power a machine, but enough to tingle the skin, move a needle, or trigger a spark. Some researchers suggest they were used for electroplating, to coat small objects with gold. Others think the jars were ritual tools, used to give a divine jolt during ceremony. But what if their use was even older, and their role more central? Could such jars, or the principles behind them, have existed long before, in Egypt or Sumer, hidden in plain sight, or buried in mud brick ruins? Clay, copper, and iron were all known materials. Acids could be made from fermented fruits, wine, or vinegar. It would not take much to stumble upon this effect, especially by curious hands mixing metals and liquids in small bowls or cups. And if sparks were seen, could they have been viewed as magical or sacred? In the dark interiors of temples or tombs, even a tiny flash would hold meaning. Could these sparks have been used to start a reaction, igniting gas, shifting pressure, or triggering movement inside a system like the Great Pyramid? Might the ancients have built larger stone machines that responded to tiny triggers like this? Some theorists believe the jars may have worked like keys, simple tools that completed a circuit or released stored energy at the right time. Could their weak charge, when placed near granite with quartz, have helped begin a piezoelectric effect? Could they have set a process in motion? The known timeline places these jars in the Parthian era, long after the Old Kingdom of Egypt. But timelines can shift when evidence is lost or hidden. If the idea existed in one place, might it have come from an earlier source, passed along and quietly preserved? Could this knowledge have traveled with priest engineers, passed hand to hand, cloaked in secrecy? These small clay jars may seem too humble to unlock ancient secrets, but history often hides truth in simple things. And the fact that they still work, even today, invites us to ask, how much did the ancients truly know? And how did they use what they had? Could this spark, born in a jar of clay, have once powered something far larger? We now turn to deeper layers, into chambers, catacombs, and stone paths, searching for systems where the line between sacred and scientific begins to blur. In the narrow halls and hidden rooms beneath Giza, something is missing: soot. For structures built thousands of years ago, the ceilings remain oddly clean. No black streaks, no smoke stains. In most ancient spaces, where torches or oil lamps were used, marks are left behind. But here, stone surfaces stay bright, even where sunlight cannot reach. This leads to a question. How were these chambers lit during construction, or even during rituals and visits? We begin with tests of the known. Traditional torches burn with open flames, leaving soot quickly. Oil lamps, while cleaner, still leave carbon traces on walls and ceilings over time. Next, we explore mirrors, polished copper plates, used to bounce sunlight deep into passageways. But with each reflection, light dims. In long corridors and deep shafts, it fades too fast. Even with perfect polish, copper absorbs more than it reflects. Then there are shafts. Some suggest the pyramid's internal passages were designed to catch sunlight at key times. We model this, using angles and simulated rays. The results show that while some natural light could enter, it would not be enough to fully illuminate the inner chambers for long work or ceremony. So we ask, were other methods used? Some theorists point to chemical light, ancient mixtures that glow when combined, simple phosphorescent compounds, or mild reactions that give off soft light. Could priest engineers have mixed such substances in sealed bowls to create glow without flame? We test one recipe using crushed minerals and weak acids. The glow is faint, but real. Could such a method have lit the interiors without soot or smoke? Others wonder about static or piezoelectric effects, light triggered by sound or pressure, rather than fire. Could vibrating granite or certain conditions inside the pyramid cause a subtle illumination? While modern labs struggle to recreate these exact results, the theory remains on the table. And the most mysterious part is not how they could do it, but why the evidence supports it. Ceilings should hold soot, walls should bear burns, but they don't. Could this be a sign that the builders had a better way, a cleaner light? Or could it suggest that rituals took place in near darkness, lit only by stars or flashes of unknown origin? Were these rooms meant to be seen or sensed? Could the lack of soot be a clue, pointing to advanced knowledge or sacred restraint? This chapter does not claim a final answer. Instead, it narrows the path. Of all the lighting methods tested, only a few match the physical clues, and the ones that do come not from fire, but from reactions and light born of silence. As we move deeper into the pyramid's mysteries, we ask once more, what kind of mind lights a room without fire and leaves no mark behind? South of the Great Pyramid lies a once busy town, now silent under layers of sand and time. This was no slave camp. Archaeologists have found well-built homes, large ovens, storage pits, and even medical instruments. The remains tell a story of planned work and skilled labor. Workers were fed daily with steady rations of bread and meat. Some houses had beds raised from the floor, signs of rest and care. Medical tools carved from copper and bone suggest people here treated wounds, pulled teeth, and managed illness. This was a community built to support a massive task. But beyond the obvious work of hauling stone, shaping blocks, and stacking layers, we begin to wonder, were some teams doing something else? Could certain work crews have had roles that dealt not with rock, but with rhythm, not with lifting, but with sound, or pressure, or water? In several parts of the worker town, we find basins worn smooth, and stones shaped like mixing bowls. Could these have been used to combine materials? Perhaps for coatings, lubricants, or even primitive chemicals. Nearby, a strange layout of round stones and channels leads some to suspect controlled water use. Not enough for farming, but maybe for testing or measuring flow. Were some of these workers trained in more than stone cutting? Could they have understood basic mixing ratios, or how sound echoed through hollow jars? One mud brick room, rebuilt in layers, shows unusual wear along the walls, almost like repeated vibration or pressure. Could this space have been used to test resonance, or to strike tones with tools now lost? We also find markings, simple lines and symbols, on some stones not used in the pyramid itself. These signs don't match quarry notes. Could they be records, formulas, or guides for those who worked with materials, not measurements? If so, who trained them? Were there priest engineers embedded in the worker city, guiding certain groups in tasks meant to prepare ingredients, test flows, or time events? Could these specialists have kept secrets even from their fellow workers, knowing only part of a greater function? These are hard questions, but the clues whisper answers. When we compare the layout of the town with what was being built nearby, strange alignments appear. Work areas in direct line with pyramid shafts, basins near pathways that match old water channels. Nothing proves intent, but much suggests pattern. Could this town have done more than feed the builders? Might it have supported the entire function of the pyramid through careful preparation? If parts of the pyramid acted like a machine, who built the machine's components? And where did they work, eat, and sleep? As we walk these dusty lanes and rooms, we begin to see the worker city not as a side note, but as a key. In its ovens, bowls, and walls, we may find the fingerprints of those who built not just a tomb, but a device that still stirs the world's questions today. When we look at the Great Pyramid, its shape seems simple: 4 sides, a square base, and angled faces that rise to a point. But when we measure it, patterns begin to appear. The base, once covered in smooth Tura limestone, stretches for over 750 feet on each side. The original height was close to 481 feet. When we calculate the ratio of the base to the height, we get numbers that echo familiar patterns. For example, multiplying the height by a certain factor gives a near match for the radius of the Earth. Other scholars have pointed out that if you double the pyramid's base and divide it by its height, you come close to the value of pi. There are also hints that the slope angle mirrors a specific triangle used in ancient geometry. Some of these links may be coincidences, but some seem too exact to ignore. So we ask, were these numbers chosen on purpose? Or did they emerge by accident from trying to build something strong and stable? Could the pyramid be shaped this way to reflect natural ratios found in the earth and sky? Or were these ratios needed to tune a function, perhaps to balance pressure, guide vibration, or store energy efficiently? The pyramid's dimensions may hold clues, not just to its structure, but to its purpose. When we look at the length of the perimeter, we find a number that roughly matches the number of days in a solar year when scaled properly. Is this just clever math, or was it built in, hidden as a kind of code? In ancient times, numbers were not just for counting. They carried meaning. Ratios were seen as keys to harmony, time, and divine balance. Could the builders have believed that tuning the pyramid to Earth's numbers made it work better? Or made it sacred? Some researchers argue that these ratios are just what happen when people build large objects from stable materials. Others think the builders may have had access to higher knowledge, passed down from earlier times, or received through careful study of the heavens. Could priest engineers have tested these ratios in small models, adjusting shapes until they found what worked best? And if the pyramid was more than a tomb, could its exact shape have helped it function as part of a larger system? Perhaps like a bell, a chamber, or a tuning fork, the shape itself mattered. Were the measurements just beautiful math, or the signature of an intelligent design meant to interact with forces we're only now learning to detect? These are questions that sit in the stone itself. The numbers are there, waiting. What they mean depends on how deep we're willing to look, and whether we're ready to accept that ancient builders may have worked with a purpose far beyond our current understanding. In the quiet corners of museums, ancient bowls carved from stone sit behind glass, often labeled as food vessels or ritual wares. But when tapped gently, some of these bowls ring with a clear, resonant tone, much like a bell. These are not crude tools. They are shaped with extreme precision. The walls are even, the curvature smooth, the balance perfect. Many are made from hard stones like diorite and basalt, materials so tough that even modern tools struggle to cut them with such accuracy. When we test them, we find that certain sizes produce repeatable frequencies. Could these objects have been used for more than storage or ceremony? Were they crafted to sing at certain notes, perhaps to create harmony with the spaces where they were used? We place these bowls inside models of the pyramid's chambers and test the effect. In some positions, the bowl's tone amplifies and lingers. In others, it vanishes into the stone. It suggests that the bowls were not just containers, but instruments, possibly tools to control or tune sound within larger systems. The ancient world was not silent. Music, chanting, and rhythm played deep roles in both daily life and sacred acts. But did some sounds have special effects on air, stone, or even water? Could sound have been used to regulate pressure, vibration, or chemical steps inside a device? Some of these bowls have no wear marks from food or fire. Others have small handles or lips that seem designed for holding in place, not pouring. We find clues that suggest careful placement, perhaps on stone ledges or within niches. Could these bowls have served as tone regulators, helping chambers hold stable frequencies, much like modern soundproofing panels or tuning forks? Were they part of a feedback loop that kept processes running smoothly? Or were they struck at key moments, as signals, to mark stages in a hidden sequence? Many theories rise. Could these bowls, in the hands of trained priest engineers, have worked like dials, adjusting the acoustic profile of a room? If so, then sound was not just for ceremony, but for function. And if chambers, shafts, and even granite blocks responded to vibration, then tuning would matter. Could a set of ringing bowls be the key to activating or balancing a complex energy flow? Some say it's just a fancy idea. But when a bowl sings with a perfect tone, carved from a rock that's millions of years old, we can't help but wonder, what was it truly meant for? These simple, beautiful pieces may hold more than art. They may be echoes of a deeper knowledge, shaped in stone. In a world where purpose was often hidden in plain sight, perhaps these bowls once held not food, but function, tuned to help the pyramid breathe, hum, or even come to life. Beneath the sand and stone of the Giza Plateau lies a hidden network of shafts, tunnels, and carved chambers. These are not the neat, straight corridors of the Great Pyramid. They are rougher, more natural in form, yet still bear marks of human hands. Some cut straight down, others snake through limestone. We descend into these dark spaces with cameras and sensors, marking the shape of each wall, the depth of each shaft, and the direction of each tunnel. In many places, we find chisel marks, pick lines, and signs of enlargement over time. Some areas have been patched with newer stones or reinforced with brick. These are not abandoned pits. They show signs of long-term use, repairs, and perhaps adaptation. Could these underground paths have once held more than air and dust? Were they built to guide water during flood cycles, or release pressure from chambers above? We examine their position below the pyramid and map their connections to nearby structures. One shaft aligns with the pyramid's center line. Another curves toward what might have been a natural aquifer. In the lower chamber, we find standing water in certain seasons. Could these lower zones have acted as pressure regulators, shifting water or air to control internal flows? Were they early testing grounds for larger systems built above? In some caves, the air feels unusually still, as if designed to trap and hold gases. In others, echoes linger too long, hinting at acoustic tuning. Might these lower chambers have stored substances, released signals, or triggered chemical steps in hidden processes? It is here that we start to see a layered history, not one build, but many stages of digging, expanding, and reworking. This suggests planning over centuries. Could each generation of priest engineers have left its mark below, slowly refining the system, storing parts, or even sealing away knowledge? The deeper we go, the stranger it becomes. Some passageways end in tight fits, as if closed on purpose. Others drop into caverns without clear exit. In these spaces, ancient voices seem to whisper through the stone. Did these tunnels serve both practical and sacred uses? Could rituals of initiation have walked the same paths as water or gas, the body mirroring the function of the system? Some theorists believe the entire Giza Plateau was part of a single, giant structure, above and below ground, working together like a machine. Could the pyramid's true function only be understood when we include what lies beneath? From the smooth limestone cap to the wet rock far below, was every layer designed to play a role? These caves and shafts may look like simple pits, but when seen through the lens of function, they may hold the missing pieces of a larger, forgotten design, one that reached deep into the earth, waiting for a spark, a sound, or a pulse to bring it alive. Every year, like clockwork, the Nile would rise. Its floods brought rich soil to the fields, but they may have also done more, perhaps triggering a hidden process within the pyramid's foundation. In this chapter, we track the water's seasonal reach and its rhythm across centuries. Could this natural clock have played a role in activating or maintaining something beneath the stones of Giza? We begin at the lower chamber, carved deep into the bedrock below the pyramid. Here, we measure water seepage, silt lines, and mineral stains along the walls. Some marks form distinct layers, not random, but recurring in height and texture. Could these be the footprints of ancient floods, reaching into the pyramid once each year like a breath? We compare these lines to modern flood data and Nile records stretching back through the dynastic era. The match is striking. The Nile's flood peak often reached its height during late summer. Could this precise rise and fall have been used like a timer, resetting a system naturally with each new year? If the rising water entered deep channels or hidden basins beneath the pyramid, it could have built up pressure, cooled certain zones, or even triggered gas release from mineral mixes. We test temperature shifts in granite cores when exposed to flowing water, and find that slight cooling can create cracks or movement. Could this motion release stored energy? We also explore the idea that floodwater could have been intentionally diverted beneath the structure. Might stone channels have guided it into collection pits? Some passages slope downward in alignment with old river paths. If true, this would mean the pyramid was not just a monument, but a seasonal engine, ticking forward once a year when the river swelled. Some theorists propose that this slow, steady rhythm may have helped prime the structure, charging stones, moving gases, or pulsing chambers with pressure. Could the flood have started a process that took weeks or even months to run its course? And if the system did operate in cycles, what was the result? A change in sound, a shift in air, a glow behind walls. We examine calcium crusts along base stones and find regular breaks, spaced apart like tree rings. These may hold the signature of repeated wetting and drying over centuries. Could priests have read these signs, tracking the pyramid's readiness through touch and sight? Might this be why many ancient calendars marked the flood not just as a farming event, but as the true beginning of the year, a sacred time when sky and earth met through the river's rise? And if the flood played a role, was it a gift of nature cleverly harnessed, or part of a grand design planned from the beginning? Beneath the stones, the rhythm of the Nile still lingers, and in its ancient pulse, we may find the beat of a lost machine, one that measured time not with gears, but with water, pressure, and purpose. Long after the pyramid had been sealed, its silence stirred curiosity. Travelers, scholars, and conquerors stood at its base and wondered what lay inside. From Greek historians to Arab chroniclers, their records offer more than just wide-eyed awe. They speak of sealed doors, deep shafts, strange noises, and rooms full of forgotten books. Herodotus, writing in ancient Greece, claimed priests told him of hidden passages and an underground lake beneath the Great Pyramid. Centuries later, Arab writers like al-Makrizi and al-Idrisi echoed the same themes of cryptic inscriptions, blocked tunnels, and guardians of old knowledge. Were these just legends, or fragments of truth passed down by those who saw more than we do today? We treat their words not as myths, but as field notes from different eras. When details appear in multiple accounts, especially from people who lived centuries apart, it invites a deeper look. Again and again, we find mentions of metal doors that sealed themselves, of traps to protect inner rooms, and of writing so fine it seemed etched by heat rather than hands. One writer described a stone that rang like a bell when struck. Another claimed the pyramid held a device that spoke when water touched it. Could these reports reflect misunderstood technologies? Or were they symbolic stories, shaped by the language of their time? We plot each story on a map of the pyramid and find clusters. Many descriptions focus on the same places, near the Grand Gallery, beneath the base, or behind the false walls. Could that mean something remains, hidden behind these zones? Arab texts also mention stored records, scrolls, or tablets that held lost knowledge. They speak of vaults filled with star charts, healing formulas, and maps of the earth from before the flood. Might some of these reports describe libraries locked within stone? Could the pyramid have once acted as a safe for ideas, not just a tomb? And if parts were truly sealed by design, could there still be chambers untouched by time, waiting behind rock that modern eyes have missed? We also compare details that repeat across cultures. The idea of secret chambers, sacred texts, and traps built to protect them shows up in both Greek and Arab accounts, and even earlier in Mesopotamian myths. Could this point to a shared memory, passed between civilizations through trade and travel? Or was there once a network of priest-keepers who knew more than they shared? Some details, like doors that open with sound or stones that glow faintly, seem too modern. But if we believe these observers were honest in their words, then we must ask, what did they really see? Could parts of the pyramid have once responded to light, tone, or touch? As we gather these stories and compare their patterns, a picture begins to form, not of one wild tale, but of many voices hinting at something more. If even one of them saw what they claimed, then our view of the pyramid's purpose may still be missing a page, sealed behind doors we no longer know how to open. Ancient temples followed rhythms of action that seemed divine, but may have served deeper functions. At the heart of many rituals were steps that repeated with precision: washing the body, mixing ingredients, speaking chants, waiting for exact moments, sealing a space, then opening it again. To the public, these actions were sacred acts done for gods. But to a trained eye, they also resemble process stages, tasks done in order, following a hidden logic. Could the rituals of temple priests have masked technical procedures, passed on in plain sight through ceremony? When we study the records left in temple walls and papyri, we find clear sequences: cleansing with water, grinding powders, mixing with oils or acids, waiting for certain star positions or shadow lengths, then sealing rooms or containers until the right time. Each step could align with physical actions needed to operate something delicate, like a reaction chamber or pressure system. Even the chanting, seen as holy words, could have worked as timing mechanisms, sound cues to coordinate effort or regulate breath in tight spaces. Could such sounds have also affected air vibration, setting tone in chambers, or starting a resonance inside stone walls? Some temple texts speak of opening the mouth of statues or awakening the house, phrases that sound spiritual but might also hint at activating devices. Was washing just symbolic, or also about removing oils that might affect reactions? Was sealing a tomb really about death, or about setting conditions for a system to hold pressure, moisture, or silence? We keep both views in hand, the sacred and the mechanical, and compare them side by side. In many places, they overlap too neatly to ignore. A recipe to make incense becomes a formula that reacts when burned. A hymn to a rising sun doubles as a guide for using its first light to trigger something. Might the entire layout of a temple or tomb reflect both belief and engineering? Some theorists suggest that when a rite was done wrong, the gods would not respond. But what if that meant a system failed to run because a step was skipped? Could priesthoods have been both spiritual leaders and system keepers, tasked with maintaining operations tied to energy, preservation, or sound? And if so, how much of this layered knowledge was known to all, and how much was held in secret by a few? When we match the ritual steps to possible technical phases, purify, prepare, measure, align, activate, we find striking alignment. Is it possible that sacred ceremonies were memory tools, built to preserve operating procedures without writing down what they truly did? Could these rituals be keys, sung in stone rooms, meant to keep systems alive long after the builders were gone. As we trace these actions through temple after temple, it becomes harder to see them as only symbolic. Perhaps belief and science were once the same language. And in those echoes, we may still find instructions waiting to be understood. In the early 1800s, a new kind of explorer arrived at the Giza Plateau. Men with tools, notebooks, and a hunger for precision. These were not treasure hunters, but surveyors, engineers, and architects. With plumb lines, rods, and levels, they measured the Great Pyramid stone by stone. Their mission was simple: record what was there with care and honesty. What they found startled even them. The base of the pyramid was nearly level, within less than an inch across hundreds of feet. The sides aligned to true cardinal points with uncanny accuracy. The corners met almost perfectly. These early surveys, done without modern electronics, still match today's scans with only the smallest variations. Yet these teams also noted odd details, small shifts, strange marks, and hidden recesses that didn't fit the official plan. Could these be clues to internal features not yet understood? Or signs of repairs, resets, or stages of construction that followed deeper logic? When we compare their work with modern LiDAR scans, ground-penetrating radar, and satellite images, we find both confirmation and mystery. Certain blocks have moved. Some areas show wear that hints at weather, not time. There are cuts in stones that suggest they were once part of a process. Channels, not just supports. Could these cuts have guided fluids, sound, or charge? Why are some areas more worn than others, even when they are equally exposed? The old maps drawn by men like Flinders Petrie and William Howard Vyse give us a base layer, a record untouched by tourist hands, excavation damage, or modern pollution. By setting their data next to today's measurements, we can isolate what has changed and what was always there. In this way, anomalies stand out more clearly. For example, slight bulges on the pyramid's sides are not errors, but built-in features. Could they have served to manage stress, airflow, or resonance? Might they reflect deeper understanding of material behavior? Some surveyors even found tunnels and blocked passages that were never explored further. Were they sealed on purpose to hide function or to protect observers? Could they connect to lower layers we still haven't reached? These questions gain weight when we note how exact the survey data remains over 2 centuries later. No casual builders left these marks. Whoever shaped this structure did so with skill far beyond what we expect from its age. So we ask, did the early surveyors glimpse more than they knew? Could their humble plumb lines have touched a deeper truth? One we are only now beginning to test. As we move forward into the latest tools, these early maps remain vital. They remind us to look twice, to measure again, and to honor the quiet clues left by those who simply measured what they saw. Because in their careful angles and hand-drawn lines, a trail begins, one that may yet reveal how the pyramid was made, what it did, and why it still stands with secrets in its stones. In the early years of the 20th century, Nikola Tesla stood beside a tall wooden tower in Colorado, copper wires trailing into the ground, waiting for lightning. His dream was bold: send power through the earth and air, wirelessly, using the planet itself as a giant circuit. He believed that energy could be transmitted not by cables, but by tuning systems to Earth's own natural frequencies. The idea was not magic. It was resonance, the same principle that makes a glass sing or a guitar string vibrate. Tesla claimed that with the right height, the right materials, and a deep connection to ground, towers could send energy vast distances without wires. Critics called it fantasy, but experiments showed sparks, lights glowing far away, and coils humming with invisible power. Now, shift the view to the Giza Plateau. There stands the Great Pyramid, built not of wood or wire, but of stone, granite, and limestone. Yet some theorists notice patterns that feel familiar. A tall structure, placed on a fault line, made of layered materials with conductive and insulating properties. The pyramid's granite, rich in quartz, can react to pressure with tiny electrical pulses, a phenomenon Tesla also understood. The king's chamber sits within a layered shell, and deep below, a chamber touches the water table. Might this shape, scale, and material mix have tapped Earth energy in ways we've forgotten? We do not say Tesla and the pyramid builders were the same. Their times, tools, and goals were different. But some ideas may rhyme across centuries. Both involve height for signal reach. Both rely on grounding deep into Earth. Both favor tuning structures to natural cycles. Tesla measured Earth's frequencies, and some researchers now test whether the pyramid's dimensions match these resonant bands. Could its size be a kind of tuning fork? If so, was this intentional or coincidence? Another parallel is isolation. Tesla's towers had no external wires, just the system and the Earth. The pyramid, too, has no signs of wiring, but its passages and chambers suggest energy movement through gas, sound, pressure, or charge. Could these be echoes of a shared concept? If Tesla showed us one way to play the planet like a silent drum, might ancient builders have done so through stone, water, and shape? Some believe the pyramid acted like a receiver or a regulator, drawing on subtle forces in the land itself. Was it a machine, a temple, or both? What if Tesla, centuries later, was chasing an idea already tested long ago, by hands now turned to dust? The answers remain open. But when we place new theories beside old stones, we find patterns worth exploring. And perhaps, just perhaps, the past and the future are not so far apart. Next, we explore deeper layers, where forgotten texts and hidden spaces may hold the final keys to this ancient puzzle. For centuries, travelers and chroniclers have whispered of strange feats, stones weighing many tons, lifted or moved as if light, guided by unseen forces or rhythmic chants. Ancient walls in Baalbek, temples in Egypt, and scattered megaliths across Peru all share a puzzling trait: blocks too heavy for known methods of their time, yet placed with care and precision. Mainstream archaeology points to levers, ramps, sleds, and teams of workers using clever coordination. And indeed, many experiments show how wood, rope, and muscle can achieve the seemingly impossible. Some old stories hint at sounds that softened stone, or chanting that helped it glide. In Tibet, an account by a Swedish engineer told of monks using trumpets and drums to float stones up a cliff face. Skeptics dismiss it. Still, we ask, what kind of sound might reduce friction? Modern labs test high-frequency vibrations that can levitate small objects or make granular particles behave like liquids. In our trials, we place flat stones on vibrating plates. With certain tones, even a heavy object shifts more easily, its resistance lessened. We add rhythmic motion, pulling in sync with a beat, and find that human effort becomes more efficient. Could ancient crews have used rhythm not just for morale, but to harmonize their strength? Some statues in Egypt show workers clapping or singing. Could the pattern of sound alter the stone's micro-contact with the surface? We test ultrasonic transducers on rock. The stone doesn't float, but under high-pitched pulses, it vibrates, slightly loosening from the platform. It's not magic, it's physics. Now, consider quartz-rich granite, used in pyramids and temples. This stone responds to stress and vibration with electric activity. Could pressure and sound, in the right sequence, make it easier to slide or shift? We cannot yet prove large-scale sonic lifting, but we test small blocks, tuned sound chambers, and guided movement. And sometimes, the stones move easier than expected. Could a forgotten craft have harnessed this? Maybe it was not one great secret, but layers of knowledge, leverage, timing, material choice, and harmonic tricks passed through rituals and repeated actions. Could chance, misunderstood as purely sacred, have once been instructions for work? And if so, how much of what we see today was not built through brute strength, but through a refined, sensory understanding of matter itself? Some theorists believe ancient builders tuned both themselves and their tools to the task. Was this a blend of science and spirituality? Could we relearn such skills today, hidden in plain sight, in folk traditions and overlooked practices? As we search for answers, each stone becomes more than weight. It becomes a message in mass and sound, waiting to be heard again. And maybe, just maybe, sound once held the key to making the impossible simple. High above the Grand Gallery, deep inside the Great Pyramid of Giza, a silent space rests in darkness. For centuries, no one knew it was there. Then, in recent years, a team of scientists used an unusual method to peer through the stone, muon radiography. This method doesn't drill or damage. It uses particles from space, called muons, that fall to Earth constantly. These particles pass through solid rock, but some get absorbed. By placing detectors inside the pyramid and watching how many muons come through from different angles, researchers can spot gaps, places where fewer particles are stopped. This is how they found what is now called the Big Void, a space over 90 feet long, positioned above the central passageways. It is not a known chamber, not in any ancient map or record. Its shape suggests it is not just a crack or a natural flaw. What is it? Some suggest it is a weight-relieving space, a structural gap to protect rooms below. Others wonder if it is more than that. Maybe it held something, or still does. Could it be a sealed room for tools or sacred items? Could it be the missing part of a process? Something tied to flow, pressure, or resonance? Or is it an unfinished element, abandoned in construction, or hidden for purpose? The void sits in a place where signals, sound, vibration, heat, might interact with the rest of the structure. Could its shape help tune the whole pyramid? Like the empty part of a bell shapes its tone. Could it collect charge, channel sound, or balance pressure in a controlled system? The mystery grows deeper when we realize that this large space is fully sealed. No known entrance leads to it. No ancient writing describes it. That silence speaks loudly. The team that found the void used muons again, from different angles, to confirm the space is real. Some now suggest small robots could be sent through narrow existing cracks or drill points in non-visible spots, using fibers or air tubes to explore without damage. These tools could bring tiny cameras, chemical sniffers, or even sound probes. Non-invasive steps may also include more scanning, thermal cameras, ground-penetrating radar, or echo tests. The goal is clear. Open the truth, not the stone. As theories swirl, some say it is a forgotten room. Others say it was always meant to be hidden. Could it be a chamber where priests once triggered a sequence? A pressure vault? A place for sound to gather and rebound in exact patterns? Or perhaps it was never meant to be entered at all. Could its very silence be the point? As the pyramid keeps its secrets, this void now offers a whisper of something more, an untouched space, waiting for careful minds and quiet tools. What else waits inside the stone, seen only by particles from the stars? Modern science returned to Giza not with chisels, but with meters. Sensitive tools were placed on and around the Great Pyramid to test a different kind of presence. Energy in forms too subtle to see, but not too faint to measure. On calm mornings, researchers checked for soil voltage, using simple probes pushed into the ground. The readings weren't strong, but they weren't flat either. Tiny differences showed up between stone surfaces and the sandy ground. On some days, the values shifted with the Sunday. Was this normal background, or something unique to Giza's stone and shape? Radio frequency tests came next. Antennas scanned the air for unusual signals. The pyramid itself was silent, but near its base, small spikes appeared in certain ranges, most often during dry conditions. Were these artifacts of equipment, or echoes of something more? Humidity sensors were placed in shadowed zones, and in direct, Sunday moisture levels shifted in strange ways, not always tied to the weather. A granite block could hold cool dampness while one nearby stayed dry. Was this just material behavior, or was the layout guiding water and air in a certain flow? On dry, windy days, static charge grew stronger. Instruments placed on upper levels picked up small bursts when wind kicked up dust across the plateau. Could the pyramid's height and shape be pulling charge like a passive antenna? One curious moment came when a field meter crackled near the apex, though the weather was still. The reading was brief and never repeated that day, but it left a mark in the logs. These tests were not done in secret. Multiple teams, using different brands of tools, ran similar experiments across months and seasons. Most results were modest. Some days showed nothing, but over time, certain patterns did emerge. Subtle, but repeatable. Small soil currents rose after sunrise. Radio shifts peaked near solar noon. Static increased after sharp wind changes. None of these alone proved a system, but together, they formed a question. Is the pyramid passively responding to the environment, or was it built to do just that? The granite blocks, the quartz content, the structure's mass, each could play a part in how energy moves or gathers. But to move from theory to understanding, more work is needed. Long-term logging, transparent data, multiple locations tested at once, and above all, open science, where anyone can check and repeat. Could the pyramid act like a giant capacitor, or a passive receiver? Or is all this just natural stone behaving as expected under stress and sun? The truth lies not in one reading, but in the patterns that hold across teams, time, and tools. If such patterns remain, then the story of Giza is not frozen in stone. It's still unfolding, one quiet reading at a time. To understand any alternate theory, we must begin with the accepted one. The Great Pyramid, in the eyes of most Egyptologists, is a royal tomb commissioned by Pharaoh Khufu during the 4th dynasty of Egypt's Old Kingdom. Built not just as a resting place but as a symbol of cosmic order, the pyramid was meant to align the dead king with the stars and the gods. The internal chambers, the king's chamber, queen's chamber, and the subterranean pit, were carefully placed to represent a journey from the world of the living to the afterlife. The Grand Gallery, with its steep climb and corbelled ceiling, may have symbolized the ascent of the soul. The pyramid itself, square at its base and rising to a single point, mirrors the rays of the sun, a concept tied deeply to the solar religion of the time. Supporting this view are inscriptions found in nearby pyramids. Later structures such as those of Unis and Teti, where the pyramid texts spell out rituals of passage, protection, and resurrection. No writing was found inside the Great Pyramid itself, but its silence has not been taken as contradiction. Instead, the structure's scale and complexity are seen as fitting for a pharaoh who wanted to project power in stone and endure for eternity. The workers' village near the site shows signs of sustained effort, medical care, and organized food supply, indicating a labor force working not as slaves, but as skilled builders under royal command. Other pyramids built before and after Giza's are all tombs, and the Great Pyramid fits this pattern, though it exceeds them in size and precision. Sarcophagi, stone boxes meant to house the body, are found in both the king's and queen's chambers. Though the body of Khufu has never been found, that absence is not seen as fatal to the tomb theory. Looting was common, and bodies from many ancient tombs are missing. Scholars argue that if we apply the same standards used elsewhere in Egypt, then the pyramid fits the model. Burial monument, cosmic symbol, and temple in stone. The orthodox case also leans on Occam's razor. A tomb explains the structure using the known culture, tools, and beliefs of the time. To argue otherwise, one must show that a new idea not only explains more, but does so without adding mystery for its own sake. Is that possible? Can a device model account for every feature? The chambers, shafts, alignment, and labor, while fitting inside what was known of the ancient world. That is the bar we now set, not to dismiss the traditional view, but to test whether a different use, layered under symbolic form, might offer equal or greater clarity. If we seek truth, both ideas must face the same light. The standard tomb story, clear and grounded, is our starting point. It is now up to the alternate model to rise and meet it. If the Great Pyramid once worked as more than a tomb, something must have caused it to stop. Machines do not simply sleep for millennia, without reason. In this chapter, we examine clues of a possible shutdown, forced or planned. Many of the smooth white Tura limestone casing blocks that once sealed the pyramid are gone, stripped away over centuries for building projects in Cairo. Without these stones, the structure's outer layer no longer forms a perfect shell. Was this loss purely later quarrying, or does it hint at an intentional deactivation? The missing gilded or metal capstone, if it ever existed, raises similar questions. A conductive tip could have helped collect or shed charge. Its removal may have halted any subtle process tied to the pyramid's shape. Could someone have removed it deliberately to make sure the system never ran again? Inside, we see cracks in the granite coffer and displacement of beams above the king's chamber. Are these signs of stress from an event? A pressure surge, a sound overload, or even a chemical reaction gone wrong? Or are they just the slow scars of time? We also note how later texts grow quiet about the pyramid's function. Early accounts describe wonders, sealed doors, or hidden powers. Later ones treat it as an empty monument. Could knowledge of its operation have been lost with the fall of a priestly class? Or was it locked away on purpose, a secret too dangerous to pass on? Another possibility is simple obsolescence. Systems built for a specific era may no longer be needed when conditions change. If the pyramid relied on Nile floods to trigger cycles, and the river shifted course, could the system have lost its heartbeat? Perhaps a royal decree ended the practice. A new ruler might have feared the device's power or expense. Some theorists even suggest that the final act of sealing the pyramid, closing shafts, removing certain parts, was part of a safe shutdown. A ritualized decommissioning carried out step by step. We look for physical evidence of this. Certain channels end abruptly, as if cut off. Some blocks seem intentionally wedged to block passage. Could these be the fingerprints of an ancient lockout procedure? The challenge is separating damage from design. Earthquakes, looters, and time all leave similar scars. But when patterns repeat, missing elements in key places, sealed shafts that once connected critical zones, it hints at intent. Was the pyramid left dormant for us to rediscover, or silenced forever to protect its secret? We cannot yet say, but in mapping these losses, the stripped casing, the vanished cap, the sealed paths, we begin to see not just decay, but a possible plan, an ancient system powered down and hidden, waiting only for history's curiosity to bring it back to light. If the Great Pyramid was once a functioning system of any kind, the way it ended offers clues to its purpose. A sudden failure would leave chaos, cracked stones, blown seals, or signs of fire or force. But instead, we see signs of calm closure. In this chapter, we walk through actions that resemble an intentional, step-by-step shutdown. Some shafts were neatly plugged with heavy granite blocks. These plugs weren't tossed in or scattered. They were cut to fit, slid into place, and left as barriers. Sealed doors were placed in the Queen's chamber's narrow channels. These do not serve air or light. Were they valve points in a system? Closed once it was done. Ramps inside the Grand Gallery were blocked off. Pits beneath the pyramid, like the one under the subterranean chamber, appear drained and abandoned. Could these once have held water or other material, later removed as part of a safe disarm process? Modern engineers follow shutdown checklists, cooling systems, releasing pressure, sealing flows, locking switches. We ask, did the priest engineers follow their own version of a shutdown protocol? Were there rituals that mirrored these steps? Sacred words paired with physical acts that served both spiritual and mechanical purposes. The builders left behind no tools, no records, and no open paths. But they did leave order. The layout of closures suggests knowledge, not fear. There is no sign of rush. Even the king's chamber has signs that its granite beams, though now cracked, were once carefully balanced. If this room held a key function, it seems it was emptied, not exploded. We also note how the lowest chamber shows no fire marks, no charring, only wear that comes from long passage. Could its role have ended before the final acts above? If each part had a cycle, water flow, vibration, pressure, did the shutdown reverse those steps? Some granite plugs seem set in sequence, not all at once. Could this show a timed procedure, a winding down across days or weeks? The question then becomes, why stop it at all? Was the mission complete? Was it deemed too risky to run again? Was the knowledge fading, passed through fewer hands until only the rituals remained? We may never know the exact reason, but the evidence of careful closure, plugged shafts, sealed stone, drained and blocked areas, suggests planning, not decay. And if there was a plan, there was likely a team, trained people, a protocol, a code of silence. We ask, were those final steps preserved in temple rites or lost in conquest and fire? Could the calm end of the pyramid's function be the reason it still stands? Untouched, mysterious, and waiting. Its silence may not be the mark of failure, but of a purpose fulfilled, and then set to rest by hands that knew exactly what they were doing. Could the Great Pyramid's silence be the result, not of human decision, but of nature's hand? In this chapter, we test the forces that could have pushed a grand system to halt: drought, quake, or storm. The Nile, lifeblood of ancient Egypt, was not always kind. Records show that during the late Old Kingdom, flood levels dropped for years. Crops failed, hunger spread, and order collapsed. If the pyramid relied on water pressure, cycles, or seasonal timing, a long drought could have choked its function. We inspect mineral stains in lower chambers, looking for signs of repeated rise and fall. Then, suddenly, none. Did the system go dry with the river? Earthquakes, too, are written in stone. In the upper parts of the structure, some granite beams in the king's chamber are fractured, not shattered, but cracked under force. Could a quake have struck just strong enough to shift the load, damage key points, and make further use unsafe? We map fault lines near the Giza Plateau and match them to known quake periods in nearby regions. And what of the sky? Solar storms can stir magnetic fields and damage modern systems. Could such a burst, however weak, have disrupted an ancient device if it used charge, static, or tuned stones? The sun has cycles. Did one flare, long ago, hit with enough energy to spoil a balance carefully held? Across the pyramid, we also see patterns of repair. Some blocks are newer, fitted into older seams. Some shafts appear blocked not with precision, but haste. These signs suggest not just a planned end, but perhaps a response to crisis. Was there an attempt to restart, to restore function after damage? Did part of the crew stay behind to fix what broke, until they too gave up or were called away? We turn to climate records, pulled from ancient lakebeds and tree rings in nearby zones. There are hints of sharp shifts, dry centuries. The climate in Egypt may have turned quickly, breaking the delicate timing of water channels or cooling cycles. If the pyramid system was fine-tuned to the Earth's rhythm, a sudden change in that rhythm could have stopped it cold. We ask, was this the moment the knowledge slipped into legend, when priests found the tools no longer worked, and the sky no longer obeyed? Could this be when rituals took the place of action, and memory became myth? It may not take sabotage or war to end a marvel. Nature, in silence, can end what brilliance began. And if one quake, one drought, or one storm did close the final chapter of this system, then what remains is not failure, but resilience. The stones still stand, the chambers still echo, and the questions still call to us. What force, seen or unseen, ended it all? And could it ever begin again, long after the last block was set and the final shaft sealed? The Great Pyramid took on a new life. If it once functioned as a precise system, whether mechanical, electrical, or energetic, that chapter ended in silence. Yet the monument remained, too massive to ignore, too perfect to dismiss. As new rulers rose over Egypt, their views reshaped the old. For some, the pyramid was a tomb, worthy of offerings and honor. For others, it became a vault of hidden wisdom or buried power. Over time, practical features faded, covered by story. Ancient travelers spoke of sealed doors, traps, and maps to gold. The Greeks, arriving centuries later, saw the pyramid as a marvel from a golden age. They called it the work of gods or demigods. The Romans followed, taking stones from its casing to build new temples. But what else did they take? What did they erase? We find evidence of chisels and saws deep inside, not for construction, but for removal. Could key parts of a system have been stolen, repurposed, or lost forever? In the Middle Ages, Arab explorers entered with tales of treasure and scripture. Some wrote of inscriptions that glowed, of devices that no longer worked. They may have seen fragments of the old design, but lacked the knowledge to restore it. And perhaps that was the point. Over time, shrines rose near the site. The pyramid became a place of reflection, a symbol of the heavens. Layers of ritual replaced layers of function. Sacred texts referred to the pyramid not as a tool, but as a stairway to the stars. We see now how stories can shift meaning. A pressure vessel becomes a tomb, A resonating chamber becomes a prayer hall. A site once alive with purpose becomes frozen in reverence. And each change hides another piece. New paint, new blocks, new myths. Could this steady reshaping be why so little remains of the original plan? We track graffiti left by visitors across millennia. Names etched in stone, sometimes over earlier marks. Did they erase diagrams, marks, or control signs? Could the loss of context be more dangerous than loss of material? The physical parts may still be there, wedged behind blocks or beneath dust, but the memory of what they meant has faded. And so we ask, when does a machine become a monument? When its function ends, or when belief reshapes its story? Could this be the fate of all great systems, that their tools turn to relics and their purpose becomes prayer? In following this change, from device to shrine, we glimpse not just a past, but a pattern, one that may echo in other places, in other ages, where what once worked was turned into worship. The pyramid remains, silent, grand, sacred. Or are we looking at a shell whose heart once beat with force, light, and purpose? Scattered across the globe, vast ancient sites rise from the earth like echoes of a shared memory. From Giza's ordered stones to Teotihuacan's precise layout in central Mexico, from the stonework of Sacsayhuaman in the Andes to the massive circles of Göbekli Tepe in old Anatolia, patterns begin to emerge, not in language or art, but in structure, orientation, and purpose. These were not random piles of stone. At Teotihuacan, the city's plan aligns with celestial cycles and seems tuned to the sun's zenith. In Peru, high mountain temples mirror constellations and track the seasons with stone shadows. In England, Stonehenge marks solar events with eerie accuracy. And on the Giza Plateau, the pyramid complex may encode Earth's measurements, the stars of Orion's belt, and even timing ratios. Could these sites, divided by oceans, language, and time, be points on a forgotten network? We test angles and latitude. We compare layout symmetry. We follow alignments that, in some cases, link distant sites along great circles of Earth. These are the same circles used in modern air travel and radio signal paths. Is it chance? Or were these places chosen to speak across time and land? We also measure what these places seem to do. Many show signs of tuning, chambers that echo, fields that focus, structures that pulse with sound or reflect skylight. Could some have stored energy, focused signals, or used Earth's natural fields as part of their design? Some theorists suggest the Earth was seen as a living grid, with energy paths or ley lines flowing across it. Did ancient builders map and tap these lines? If so, then Giza was not alone. It was a node, perhaps the crown jewel in a web that spanned continents, a system not made for power in the modern sense, but for timing, balance, or signal, subtle forces used to guide ritual, harvest, or spiritual contact. Critics call this coincidence, or pattern seeking. But the repetition of certain forms across distance and age presses us to ask more. Why do these cultures, supposedly isolated, build with such similar rules? Why do the most sacred sites track the same stars, mark the same sunrises, and share key numbers? Could they have drawn from an earlier source, a vanished culture that seeded the world with geometry and purpose? Or did priest engineers in different places all rediscover the same truths about the planet beneath them? If these sites were once linked in a system, what was it for? Was it a calendar, a resonance net, or a tool for contact? And if the system failed, or was taken apart? As we step back and plot these monuments on the map, we find not ruins, but coordinates, not relics, but reminders. The question is no longer just what Giza was. It's whether it was one of many, built in harmony, across the world, in a time we no longer remember. After 41 chapters of field reports, lab tests, and ancient texts, we now turn to the most probable functions of the Great Pyramid. Though no carved label tells us its purpose, patterns emerge, from measurements, materials, and strange voids, to echoes in chambers and shafts aligned with the stars. This structure behaves more like a system than a tomb. Among the many ideas explored, 4 roles stand out. A beacon that sent or received signals, a power amplifier using natural fields, a hall tuned for healing sound, and a calendar that marked time with solar precision. To rank these, we use physical clues: granite with quartz, shafts that align with stars, hidden spaces, soot-free chambers, water pathways beneath. The strongest support falls on 2 models: the power system and the signal beacon. Both explain the pyramid's internal layout, layered design, and connection to Earth forces. The power model suggests the pyramid harnessed water from the Nile's annual flood. Water entered the lower shafts, where it met granite chambers. The granite, rich in quartz, may have vibrated under pressure, producing small electric charges through piezoelectricity. These could have been stored, amplified, or directed by the layout of the chambers and the now missing capstone. Copper traces and salts hint at chemical processes, possibly aiding energy flow. The pyramid, in this view, was a passive generator, stable, durable, and powered by seasonal rhythms. The signal beacon idea takes this one step further. It proposes that energy built up inside the pyramid was released in bursts or pulses. These could have been sound-based, electromagnetic, or light-driven. The king's chamber, tuned to a narrow frequency range, could have served as the heart of the system, while shafts acted as tuned channels or waveguides. The lost golden capstone, if real, may have played a key role, broadcasting or collecting energy focused upward or outward. Was it sending out a message to other sites, or receiving signals from above? We do not claim proof, only possibilities. But both models fit more physical evidence than the standard tomb theory. They also explain the use of certain materials, the careful isolation of chambers, and the strange precision of alignment. If the pyramid was a device, it was not built to impress. It was built to function. It used earth forces, geometry, and cycles of time. Still, questions remain. Why was it turned off? Was it ever fully complete? And most of all, what was its purpose beyond the mechanical? Was it built to heal, to speak across space, to mark time, or to serve as a bridge between worlds? We may never know the full answer. But by narrowing the list and comparing models, we come closer to seeing the pyramid not as a dead stone, but as a frozen blueprint, one that once hummed with purpose. With the device theories laid out, we now turn toward proof. Real proof, the kind that can be tested, checked, and repeated. This means stepping beyond speculation and designing fair, open trials. If the Great Pyramid once functioned as a power amplifier or signal beacon, then measurable effects should still exist in its stones, shafts, and surrounding ground. First, we begin with sound. Teams can use modern audio gear to map frequencies inside each chamber. They can pulse tones from the Queen's chamber floor, record resonance in the Grand Gallery, and sweep for vibrations in the King's chamber walls. If a chamber rings at precise frequencies, this is data. Sound can reveal tuning, structure, and potential function. Next, gas trials, done safely and without harming the site. Using sealed scale models, we introduce harmless gas mixes and recreate chamber conditions. We track reactions, pressure changes, and heat. Were any rooms designed to hold or release gases? Could shafts vent or direct flow? Third, we study water flow. Floodplain models, ancient basin routes, and controlled fills can test how seasonal water may have risen into the pyramid's base. Did water enter the lower chamber by design? Could it have primed reactions or helped generate pressure? We log all fluid paths, compare mineral stains, and check wear marks for repeated cycles. Fourth, electrical studies. We measure soil voltage, resistance in granite blocks, and surface charges on dry days. We test if quartz-rich walls build piezoelectric tension when under load or sound stress. Could copper fittings or trace salts once helped conduct energy between rooms? All results must follow strict controls, clear methods, calibrated tools, blind studies, and open data logs. We welcome critique and demand repeatability. If nothing special happens, then that matters. But if patterns emerge, consistent tones, unusual charges, or fluid behavior not explained by gravity alone, then we must ask why. These tests do not aim to prove wild theories. They aim to clarify what the pyramid does and does not do. Truth is patient, but it asks for clean hands and steady eyes. Many past claims failed because they lacked rigor or withheld steps. We avoid that here. Every test is written out, reviewed by experts, and shared with global teams. If a chamber hums, it should hum for everyone. If stone holds charge, it should do so under any sky. This is not about belief, but about balance. A bold idea must bear bold scrutiny. The pyramid, silent for thousands of years, may yet speak, but only if we listen with instruments, not just awe. The work ahead is slow, careful, and public, but this is how science treats mystery. And perhaps the greatest mystery of all deserves nothing less than our best. As we near the end of this journey, it is time to weigh the evidence with fairness and clarity. On one side stands the orthodox view that the Great Pyramid is a royal tomb, a symbolic monument built by human effort, guided by religious vision. This view is backed by funerary texts, the presence of sarcophagus-like boxes, and the pyramid's alignment with other tomb structures. On the other side, we have the device model, supported by measurements, materials, and anomalies. It points to high precision in stone cutting, clear resonance in chambers, and oddly clean ceilings where firelight should have left marks. It sees function beneath form. It asks why some shafts align with stars, why certain stones appear burned or fused, and why a large, hidden void still has no clear purpose. Each side has strengths. The tomb theory explains the pyramid's place in royal tradition and fits cultural patterns. It matches known beliefs and rituals, and it makes sense of the pyramid as a grand statement of order and divine rule. But it struggles to explain technical aspects. Why such precise cuts in stone that modern tools would find difficult? Why granite boxes polished to optical flatness? Why materials like quartz-rich granite, known to react under pressure or sound? The device theory offers potential answers. It sees the pyramid as a system of sound, water, or energy. It finds meaning in the shaft angles, the chamber layout, and the use of specific materials in specific places. But it too has limits. It lacks hard proof of function. It has few documents, no intact mechanisms, and must fill many gaps with theory. Still, some findings sit stubbornly in between. Clean ceilings deep inside chambers, unexplained voids confirmed by muon scans, box shapes that dampen vibration, long shafts too narrow for funerary processions, and a precision of alignment to true north that challenges even modern instruments. Could both sides hold parts of the truth? Might the pyramid have started as a functional device and later gained symbolic meaning? Could rituals have preserved procedures long after the original use faded? Or are we simply seeing patterns where none were meant? The honest answer is, we do not know. But we do know what is real. The stone is real. The cuts, the voids, the shafts, and the materials are there to measure. The texts, from kings and visitors alike, speak of sealed doors and hidden chambers. And the tools of modern science give us new ways to test what was once just story. What remains are the gaps. We still do not know what the large central void was for. We do not know why the pyramid contains no writing inside. We do not know how such scale and accuracy were achieved with no clear tools left behind. These gaps do not prove a device, nor do they dismiss one. They ask for more light, more tests, and more open eyes. We stand once more at the base of the Great Pyramid, where our journey began with a single bold question. For thousands of years, this mountain of stone has watched the desert shift and empires rise and fall. It has been called a tomb, a temple, a stairway to the heavens, and a machine. We have walked its passages, mapped its voids, tested its echoes, and traced its myths back to Sumer and beyond. We have measured angles, logged materials, and compared it to sites spread across the earth. In each test, a pattern flickers: precision, resonance, mixed stones, hidden spaces. We have also seen the power of the orthodox view, grounded in culture and supported by text. Both pictures hold weight, both leave questions. No mummy has been found, no clear device has survived. Yet the clues remain. Clean ceilings, shafts aligned with stars, granite boxes cut to a level. Modern eyes still admire. Could this be only a tomb? Or could it be the silent shell of something older? A system built by priest engineers, or even the beings remembered as the Anunnaki, teachers of canals and measures in Mesopotamia. We cannot claim the answer today, but we can claim a way forward. Strong claims need strong, repeatable results. That means testing another node, another site in the network, perhaps Teotihuacan in Mexico, or a mountain temple in the Andes. If patterns appear there too, ratios, resonance, shafts, and hidden voids, then the case for a global system grows stronger. If they do not, the device model must adjust or fall. This is how science works. We compare, we test, we let the stones speak. Standing here, feeling the desert wind against ancient stone, we sense not just mystery, but continuity. Knowledge moves in cycles. Myths may hold memory. Ritual may hide procedure. Was the Great Pyramid a tomb only, a monument to power and faith? Or was it once a living structure, built to work with the earth, tuned to the stars, and guided by hands whose names we have forgotten? That is the question that remains. We have built a framework to explore it, but the work is not finished. It stretches beyond Egypt, across oceans and mountains, into other ruins waiting in silence. The next goal is clear: test, measure, and compare. Only then can we move from wonder to understanding. Only then can we answer the question that has stood here for thousands of years. What was this giant of stone meant to do?